Welcome to the Military Minute Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Jennings, and this episode is sponsored by Petting House, Stronger Than Steel. Thanks again for joining us. Quiet quitting is something that has risen in popularity in recent years. We heard about it a lot while the pandemic was officially still in, but it's still out there. Not quite as getting the amount of press that's there. But ultimately, the idea behind quiet quitting is this concept that somehow you just start mailing it in every day and are no longer giving your best efforts towards your particular employer. And many people who have gotten online to talk about quiet quitting give all kinds of reasons to justify it and why they should do it, why they're entitled to do it, why it's a good idea, and lots of instructions on exactly how to do it. But here's one thing that is true of every single person who is quietly quitting. They aren't happy. They're not happy at all. And the mistake that is made in the concept of quiet quitting is that somehow your employer is responsible for your happiness. And that because you're not fulfilled, your employer is responsible to give you something that you're not earning. One of the things that we have talked about in a recent episode that employers really like about military veterans is the idea that we buy into the mission of an organization. We volunteer for service to our country and national defense and the ideals of what it means to be an American. And understandably, that can be a little bit hard to do in the for-profit world, to find that mission that's bigger than who you are. But there is a mission that everybody can get behind. And the mission is your own happiness and your own contentment with what you're doing. I have never met anybody who has devoted themselves to always doing their best and being their best, who wasn't satisfied with who they were, that wasn't at peace with what they did. Because the essence of doing your best, giving your best, being your professional best at all the time helps people to live a life of no regrets. The quiet quitter knows he or she is doing something wrong. They know that's the case. That's part of why they're miserable. Because when you know that you're doing something wrong, you're convicted of this in your own spirit, and it makes you miserable. And misery begets more misery. Interestingly enough, if you're a person of faith like I am, Jesus tells the story in the parable of the talents. And he talks about how in this story that he tells, how a master gives a group of servants, 10 of them, 1 talent to go and do something with while he's gone. At the end of the story, when the master comes back to do an accounting of this, what we see is we see that the servants that got a 5-fold and 10-fold return on what they did were praised for being excellent. When you use your talents to produce something magnificent, that is very commendable. The story skips the people in the middle and goes all the way down to the one person at the end who said, I didn't do anything with the talent that was given to me. I hid it. And so now here, master, is the talent you gave me back. And in this particular parable in the Bible, this person is referred to as wicked. Wicked is reserved for people who are knowingly are doing things that are wrong, and that person is cast out from what they're doing. So what we see inside of this principle is what all of us feel. When we are holding back on giving for whatever reason to what we're doing, we're miserable. We know we're being wicked. We may choose to do it, and we may feel justified in doing it for a moment, but in the end, we know we're being wicked. And when we finally get fired or reprimanded for what we're doing, in the end, it doesn't matter how much we justify it. We know that we deserved what we were getting. But on the other side, when we're engaged and we're constantly focused on trying to get a 5-fold or 10-fold return on what we're doing, we're fulfilled. Because the interesting principle that lies inside of all of this is that ultimately, whatever you believe, the one thing that everybody agrees on is human beings were created to create. That's the part of our divine spark. We have inside of us abilities to do things, to imagine things, and to pursue things, bring them to fruition in whatever it is whatever field that we're doing. Even if you're working pure manual labor, manually digging ditches, manually picking fruit, we're created to create something. And it's in those small moments in whatever it is that we're doing where we focus on excellence that we have pride in what we're doing. And when we have pride in what we're doing, we have dignity in what we're doing. And when we have dignity in what we're doing, we are moving upward. But when we are cutting things off, and when we are not being our best, and we are constantly trying to find ways to avoid doing our work, we're stealing from people. And we know that to be true. So what's the answer to all of this? First thing to remember is happiness is an inside job. One of the things that I have to teach all new recruiters when they come here is that the companies and the jobs that we work with don't sell themselves. As a matter of fact, there is no such thing as a product that sells itself. Everything has pluses and minuses, and everything requires promotion. But what the value is to a particular person is personal. What that person wants that product or that service or that job to do is going to be different for everybody. And what the effective recruiter does is that we focus on the aspects of the opportunity that are important to the person that we're talking to, and that helps to influence them. So in your own life, if you want to continue to be happy, in the work that you're doing, find things about what you're doing that you like and make the decision to like them and to pursue those things. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to stay with the employer that you're with forever, but you don't want to be miserable in the process. Nobody ever goes around saying, I want to be miserable. Everybody I talk to in finding a job always says that I want to do what I'm good at and I want to be happy. Those are the two things I hear every single day, multiple times per day. But to do that, you have to make a decision to be happy. And you can be dissatisfied with your current situation and pursuing something else, but still be happy. Because inside you know that you're giving your best, that you're not burning bridges, that you're giving people what they paid for. But thank the Lord, thank God for a free enterprise system in America where you can take whatever talents it is that you have, and you have the ability to go apply them someplace else. That's why it's so important to get in touch with your value systems. It's the first thing it is that we teach in the military transition process, but regardless of where you are in life, you need to understand what your values are. And then with that, you can use those value systems to drive and pursue to the things that you want to do to find increasingly more fulfilling work. But even if you can't, you always still have it within you to make the decision to be happy and to be your best. And if you do that, I promise you will sleep well every night. Thanks for joining us. I'm Mike Jennings, and looking forward to having you join us next time on the Military Minute Podcast.
Thanks for joining the Military Minute. Be sure to subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts so you're notified when a new episode is released. Is there a topic or conversation you want discussed here on the show? Send it to me at scott.cunningham@militaryminute.us.